Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhedu Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gukarasto Andhakaro Vai Rukarasto Nivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankarabhavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are nearing the end of the the principles of Nididhyasanam. So let's see. So what we saw in this very beautiful analysis in the Aparoksha Anubhuti was that the last four of the yogic ashtangas, last four of them, pratyahara, dharana, dhyanam, and samadhi. And these four were analyzed from a Vedantic standpoint. And analyzed in the sense that this is one of the hallmarks of Advaita Vedanta, is that it breaks down complex situations and complex concepts into simpler steps that one can take. It's kind of like a tall ladder. You cannot really just climb all of a sudden. This is how the ladders are made. You take one step, you take another step, and like that. So these are the four steps that the Vedanta analyzes these four points. So just to remind you, so there are three ways that we see things. Okay, so one is what is called deshataha, from the standpoint of space. So you can even visualize this as the space-time, space-time coordinates. So one is space, the other one is time, and the third one is the object within those two coordinates, the object itself, vastu. So here, pratyahara, so actually vastu is not a good word, because vastu should be reserved to something which is real. So here, my apologies, it should be vishaya. It should be vishaya. Vishaya is a good word. All these are very, very accurately defining words. And so the vishaya is something that looks like a vastu, but it isn't. It is just an external thing that you are visualizing it. So vishaya. So any one object can be isolated in three ways. One of them is from the standpoint of Vishaya. Vishaya meaning what one is, it is not something else. So if you have a wall The wall is not a floor. So this is what is called Vishaya. Something specific to, this is how it is limited. So this is a sense of limitation. The second sense of limitation is from the standpoint of space. It is like saying, I am my body and so on. I'm here, not in East Coast of US. And so specific to a space, a limitation. Then there is a specific to a time, that I'm sitting here now, half hour ago I was not there, and a couple of hours later I also will not be here in this place. So this is Kalataha. So we saw that Pratyahara deals with Vishaya Drishti. Dharana deals with Desha Drishti. In other words, if we have to do meditation, where should I place? What is the place that I should meditate? What place should I meditate on? Dhyanam is Kala Drishti. What time should I visualize when I'm doing meditation? And Samadhi is the amalgam of all three, Vishaya, Desha and Kala. So this is how we analyze the last four steps of the yogic Ashtanga, the last four, Chaturtha, four different steps. So there we saw Pratyahara, we have already finished doing that. So today we'll go to the second step, which is Dharana. So the Dharana means location, Desha Drishti. Alright, so let's look into that now. So with respect to Desha Drishti, there is a verse that defines the Desha Drishti. And this is something that we are already familiar with, but perhaps we should revisit it to make sure that we are clear about it. Well, let me just say the verse first. This is verse number 122. It says, Yatra yatra mano yati brahmanas tatra darshanat manaso dharanam chaiva dharana sa paramata. Yatra yatra mano yati, wherever the mind is. Yatra yatra. Yatra means place. Whatever place. Yatra yatra mano yati. Whatever place the mind goes, at that place try to visualize Brahman. Brahman means Atma, yourself, your own, you're the self of yourself. The conscious entity that you are. Separate from everything else. So the conscious entity that you are is something which is unique. So the unique in the whole creation, it is unique. It is unique in the sense that it is whatever you see, it is not that, but what you see is because of that. You see? So it means that it is no place it is not, but it is nothing specific. It is the very content. That is the uniqueness of the self, Brahman. So that uniqueness of the Atma should be placed wherever your mind is. So this one, let me finish doing this verse and then I'll refer this to the verse from Drikdrishya Viveka number 30, which is very similar to that. So I'll explain more about it. So yatra yatra manoyati brahmanah tatra darshanat. By the vision of Brahmanaha, Tatra yatra yatra tatra darshanat, because of the seeing of that, manaso dharanam cha eva dharana sa parabata. He says that is what is considered by the wise people to be the real dharana. Real dharana is not any parts of the body, any particular chakra. That's not what we consider in Vedanta. Vedanta says it does not matter what you think about. What matters is that whatever you are thinking about, it should have the component of pure conscious, the presence of the pure conscious entity that you are. It should be. This is what is called, you've heard of this term and I will probably refer to it again, Adhyatmika Vidya. Adhyatmika Vidya has 2 or 3 different meanings, but in this particular context, it has a very particular meaning that really appeals to me. Adhyatmika Vidya means a knowledge where the component of Atma is included. See, let's look at it this way. So, in our everyday transactions, we do not consciously include the Atma as the presence. Very much like if you're in our example that we are familiar with, that supposing you are examining different golden ornaments to purchase. It's typically what happens when in India, this is very common, when this woman is ready for marriage, then she and her mother or grandmother also, or some aunts, women, they examine what kind of jewelry they want, so that their mind is totally involved with, I like this shape. No, this is old-fashioned, I think you should go with this kind. So the whole discussion, the whole transaction is to do with the shape of the ornament. So at that point in time, they are not really looking at the gold, which is the underlying aspect of the ornament. They're not seeing the golden ornament. It's, you can even say that, for example, as you know very well, that the luster of ornaments is the luster of gold. Okay, so let's just stop at that. Weight of, let's say 2 things, weight and luster. Weight of ornament is the weight of gold. The luster of the ornament is the luster of gold. Okay, So when you are examining the various shapes, the weight and luster is not being considered at that point, because they're just looking at to say, how does it look? And so they're looking only at the shape, presumably. They could be looking at luster also. But if you look at simply the shape without the luster and the weight, that would be exactly akin to our transactions in life. So we go around, so we have a certain knowledge about transactions. What are we going to do? Let's not do this. This is what I think we ought to be focusing on. All those kinds of transactions. So this vidya, this what is called vyavaharika vidya, the transactional knowledge, does not involve the Atma. You're not cognizant of it. But as a student who has already been taught the fundamentals of reality, what is Satyam, what is Mithya, what is Atma, what is non-Atma, all of us, then what we are supposed to do, this is what this verse is saying. This is what dharana is. What we are supposed to do is to turn the vidya into adhyatmika vidya. The adhyatmika vidya means that your transaction, you don't have to change anything in your transaction. Nothing needs to be altered. You still have to fulfill your hunger. You still have to, dress up properly. You have to talk to people. All of those things are going on. But our ability, as we are looking at things and transacting, so also keep in mind who I am. The presence of the Atma, the participation, the unchanging nature of it. If I have the ability to do so, this is what is called Adhyatmika Vidya. Atma adhikritya vidya yasya. If you want to look at the definition, keeping the Atma in mind, focusing on that, not losing it, and you are still transacting. Atma adhikritya vidya, your transactional knowledge, yasya, one that has, is called adhyatmika vidya. So that's very similar to what the dharana is. So dharana here means, that's what he's saying. Now let's look at the whole verse again. Yatra yatra manoyati. Yatra yatra manoyati means wherever your mind is busy, whatever transaction it is involved in. Brahmanahas tatra darshanat. There itself, if you have the ability, so this is what it means. This is what nididhyasanam. We keep talking about shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam, shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. It becomes kind of like do you know what somebody says? Hey, do you know what the basic components of Advaita Vidya is? Advaita Vedanta is? You say, yes, we know. Shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. Listening to it, then removing some doubts for it, and then practicing it. So we just kind of trivialize it and say, okay, that we have done. Anything else that we need to know? Here it means in our ability in life to develop the vision, the practice, the effectiveness of not losing sight of the Atma in whatever I'm doing. That is called dharana. This is the step of nididhyasanam that we should be sensitive to. That's what it is saying. Yatra yatra manoyati brahmanas tatra darshanat manaso dharanam cha. Manasaha dharanam cha. The holding of the mind, the imbuing of the mind with the Atma Vidya. While you're transacting, nothing is not as though you... See, this is very different. Very different from the yogic meditation. In yogic meditation, so this is very important for us to see. I mean, we've already been talking about the differences. In the yogic meditation, you eliminate thoughts. The attempt is to be thoughtless. This is good. Good as a practice, good as a beginning. But that's not Vedanta. Vedanta is the ability not to eliminate thoughts, but to see thoughts as nothing else but a form of the Atma. So it doesn't mean that that yogic meditation and the Vedantic meditations is something good or bad. I think the best way of, even if you're a yogi and you want to really import the best practices from others, then this would be one to do. What it means is, if you're able to eliminate all thoughts and just be with yourself, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Best luck. But if you're not able to, for whatever reason, doesn't mean that you feel I've failed. No. Because then import the principles of Vedanta. And even when the thoughts are there, you begin to see the presence of the Atma. But purely speaking, we are not really in Vedantins, the Advaita Vedantins. We are not concerned about eliminating thoughts. We are very interested in making sure that the thoughts are fruitful for me. They are well controlled. All of that is there, but not elimination. Instead, you have to see, as we've already done, you have to see the presence of the reality. The viveka has to be kept in mind, which is real, what is imposed. Exactly like you are examining some ornaments. There, when you are looking at the ornaments, in addition to the shape, you should also say, this shines very well, and this is the weight of it. So there, the gold is considered as part of the decision making. So similarly here also, in the Adhyatmika Vidya, whenever we transact, we have to keep in mind that whatever mental vrittis come about, whatever emotions come about in my transactions, my likes and dislikes, my disappointments and a sense of joy, is nothing compared to what I am, which is timeless, which is the very source of joy, and one which is self-existing. So keeping those thoughts in mind while I'm transacting, puts my experiences in the proper perspective. That is what Adhyatmika Vidya is. That is what Dharana is. So here it is Desha Drishti. It's sadhana from the standpoint of place. So there the place is, doesn't matter what the place is. You see, that's what it is saying. Swami Akhandananda ji gives such a beautiful example. I can't believe it. How appropriate. He says, listen to me. He was saying this right here somewhere. Yeah. So I'll say this in Hindi for just to have the authenticity of his talks. So he says in Hindi, हम भूख लगने पर भोजन करते हैं, तो क्या ये नियम करते हैं कि खीर मिलेगी तभी भोजन करेंगे? क्षुधा निवृत्ति के लिए जो वस्तु समय पर मिल गई और खाद्य हुई तो उसी से भूख मिला लेते हैं. इसी प्रकार महात्मा लोग वैकुंठ जाने के लिए अथवा निर्विकल्प समाधि लगाने के लिए ध्यान नहीं करते. What an example. So let me translate that in English. He says, supposing you are hungry, really hungry. At that point, is your mind going to say that I must only have an ice cream? Kheer is, of course, those of you that you know what kheer is. I'm just taking a sweet dish called ice cream. Would you do that? No. He says you would look for any appropriate food. Not anything, you won't eat dirt. Khadya, hui. Khadya means one which is appropriate for eating, anything. You just want to quench your hunger. That's all you want to do. He says similarly, all the Mahatmas, they are not saying that I am going to go to heaven. इसी प्रकार महात्मा लोग वैकुंठ जाने के लिए I'm going to do all these yagas and yajnas and so on because this will take me to a better place. That means that the current place is not good, but the future place may be good, and they believe it will be good, better. They don't do that. अथवा निर्विकल्प समाधि लगाने के लिए ध्यान नहीं करते. They don't say, Mahatmas, that I am not yet in nirvikalpa samadhi. I need to be. He gives a beautiful example here. He says, he had many teachers, but his principal, Swami Akhandananda, I'm talking about, his principal teacher was Uriya Babaji. So he says, and then it was very interesting in his commentaries, which are all over the place, he recites his own life history, how he began by just asking questions, not being clear about it, and then meeting the Mahatmas and slowly learning from them. This is what he was saying. So here in this story he says one time, I'll do this in English, I won't do that in Hindi. He says, he says, I went to Uriya Babaji one time and he says, what should I do dhyanam on? Dhyan kiska? What should I do? What should I meditate on? He said, whatever, chahe jiska. So he says, should I meditate on my own body? He said, yes. So he says, what will happen if I just meditate on the body? He says, if you meditate on the body, at least you will be able to see that you are the very conscious of the body, you are not the body. You cannot be, if you are the body, you cannot be conscious of the body. You have to be something separate from the body. He says that's what you will accomplish. So do it. Anyway, I think you get the point that dharana does not mean you have to have a particular place to meditate on. Not the place where the meditator is sitting. That is all, we have already done that before. We're talking about where your vision should rest. Doesn't matter where it rests. The more important thing is that wherever it is a complete vision, not an incomplete vision. Adhyatmika Vidya means a complete vision, including the Atma itself. So with that, I think we have completed that. I think we have 3 or 4 more classes, and so I think we'll finish the last 2, which is Dhyanam and Samadhi. And then I think it would be very nice that we have completed a rather extensive course of the analysis of Nididhyasanam before we conclude these series of talks. So let's switch over to the Bhagavad Gita now. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaita Mritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambattvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramo Panishadaihi Gayantiyam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyantiyam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Right, so take my glasses out because this is fine print. So we have completed this set of verses that started with number 31 of the second chapter and ended on verse number 37, 31 to 37. Swadharmam api chavekshana vikampitum arhasi dharmathi yudhyat shreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate, and ended up with hato va prapsyasi swargam jitva bhokshyase mahim tasmad uttishta kaunteya yuddhaya krita nishchayaha. So this set, as you remember, as we recall, had to do with the fact that even if you do not understand clearly that the Atma cannot be killed, the Atma is a Vastu. You are all a Vastu, everybody else here is a Vastu that cannot be killed. It's not made up of it. You cannot injure your consciousness. Dehas, yes, but Deha is not you. So even if it is not clear to you, which was all previous from number 11 to number 30, even if you were to look at your transactions, what is your dharma? Forget about the Atma for the time being. What is your duty in life? What are you supposed to do? How should you behave? Even from that standpoint, it does not make any sense that you should quit fighting. That was the essence of these 7 verses. Swadharmam api chavekshan avikampitum arhasi dharmyathi yudhyat shreyo anyat. So there we saw that there were some carrots and sticks. If you don't do that, let me tell you the problems you're going to have. If you do that, you're going to come out a winner regardless. And then he ended up by summarizing in verse number 37. Hey Arjuna, get up and fight, because I have given you all alternatives, and in all alternatives you are good to go ahead and fulfill your duty, which is you are a leader who has been trained, who is expected to preserve the dharma, and it's important for you to fulfill that duty. So this is ending of the verse number 37. Now, excuse me, we start a new topic. And this new topic, which is Karma Yoga, is the essence of the whole book. This new topic is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Now, the essence of Bhagavad Gita, of course, means Atma Vidya. So I'm not saying that Karma Yoga is the essence. But what the Bhagavad Gita is particularly known for is Karma Yoga as a very crucial part of Atma Vidya. So this is meant for, Bhagavad Gita is not meant for people who are like Ramana Maharshi, who had already done Karma Yoga in their previous life, and they're somehow or the other they still could not complete everything, so they are born as a potential jnani. So there it is not important for you to go through the various vicissitudes of life, of Karma Yoga and so on. You can straight away go to Jnana Yoga. But 99.999% of the people are like us, where the subtlety of the mind has to be developed in order to understand Atma Vidya, and there Karma Yoga is very important. So this section now with verse number 38 now starts that whole topic, Karma Yoga. Okay, so in introducing this, Swami Shankarananda gives a very good introduction to this. So let's just go through this. So this would be, so number 38, let me just articulate the verse itself, and then we will go into the definition introduction. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yudhaya yujyasva naivam papamavapsyasi. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yudhaya yujyasva na evam papam avapsyasi. So he says, so sukha dukkha same kritva. May you have an attitude of it doesn't matter, sameness. It is the same for you. It doesn't really bother you to that extent. What is dukkha and sukha? Sometimes you are happy, sometimes you not you are happy, sometimes you experience happiness, sometimes you experience dukkha. So instead of going out of shape, just ignore them. Be kind to both, be the same to both of them. And similarly for labha and alabha. Labha means gain and alabha means losing, losses. So in gains and losses, jaya jayau, jaya ajayau. So these are all dvandva samasas. Labha labhau, jaya jayau, sukha dukkhe. These are all dvandva samasas, the pairs of the. So jaya jaya means jaya ajaya, means victory and defeat. So you have the ability to have not be to be pushed aside by these differences is what you need to develop in life. This is an important, which has come from Karma Yoga. Here there's a very beautiful saying, I think, in the West, which says, pushed out of shape. I think it's a very appropriate, beautiful thing. Pushed out of shape. If you look at a spring, you can have a spring that can be extended up to a point. We all know this, that if you push or pull the springs beyond what it is capable of returning to, then it never returns back to the original shape. It gets bent out of shape. So here, the whole idea here is, please don't let life make you out of shape. If things happen, it's going to happen, and then go back to a sense of equilibrium. This is the essence of the Karma Yoga. Anyway, so this is the verses. This is the Tato Yudhaya Yujyasva. So means that therefore, see, the first line is the hetu, that is the reason, and the second line is the effect. The first line is Sukha dukkhe same kritva, doing this, having an attitude of sameness. For that reason, may you resolve to continue to fight as you had started. You were prepared for war. Everybody else is expecting you. You have a certain place in that expectation. Fulfill it. Why? Because, as we will be explaining, that becomes a a weapon for you to discover your own fullness. That's what he says. Tato yuddhaya yujyasva na evam papam avapsyasi. So you won't create problems for yourself. Because papam means problems. I mean, for our own self-discovery also, you need to be reasonably free of problems. If you fall down and you break a leg or hip and you are in the hospital and so on, you can't think about Vedanta. So papam means that these are unnecessary problems that you should just avoid and put yourself in a situation where you have the ability to discover, which is not an easy thing to do, but to discover the beauty of the self. So this is the general advice given here. So in particular now, just the beauty of how these analyses are done. So let's just look at this. So Swami Shankarananda says in this introductory paragraph to verse number 38 on page 86, he says, Nanu hato va prapsyasi swargam iti vakyena yudhyasya aihika amushmika sukha sadhana tvam eva pratiyate. न तो धर्म्यात् ही युद्ध्यात् श्रेयो अन्यत् इति उक्त न्यायेन श्रेय साधनता विद्यते. See this? This is nice, very beautiful. He says, wait a second. When you are giving me this carrot and stick, hato va papsyasi swargam, either if you were to get killed, you would definitely go to Swarga. You will say that. So he says, Nanu hato va prapsyasi swargam iti vakyena. By these sentences, yuddhasya aihika amushmika sukha sadhanatvam eva pratiyate. Just look at this, beautiful. He says, by these kinds of sentences, all you are saying is that you will have a happy life either later in this life, which is aihika, or amushmika. Amushmika means the one which will come later in the form of heaven. So here's what he's saying. Let's repeat it again. He says, Nanu. Nanu means, it appears to me that through these kinds of sentences, you are only promising a life of pleasure, either later on if I win the war, or, later on in this life if I win the war, or later on after this life if I lose the war. That's all you're doing. You're praising. And you are not, it doesn't make any difference whether it is due to a dharma. Natu dharmyat hi yuddhyat shreyo anyat. Iti ukta nyayena shreya sadhanata vidyate. He says, I don't see any way you are telling me that the shreya sadhana, shreya thus means that anything better than this. So here's the, I just want to revise this. So he says, all I appear to see is that you are recommending that regardless of how I do, I'll have a better life either later on this life or next life. But I don't see any way to do anything better than that. So Shreya sadhana means that something which is, even that is not good enough for me, one which is permanently happiness to me, you are not telling me that. You're not telling me that. So that means that the only advice I will get is that I will have a better life later. That's it. That's all I'm getting. This is further explained in the next sentence. He says, Tataha, therefore, Indriya Ramanam eva kartavyam yuddham. He says, therefore, all I see in the war is to have some pleasure. It's the whole war, the purpose of the war is only to be happy, to experience happiness is what you are telling me. So he says, Tataha Indriya Ramanam eva kartavyam yuddham. Yataha swargadi sukha hetutvam yuddhasya drishyate. Because the sukha of swarga etc. alone is seen from this logic. Tataha bandhakatvat na paramartha apeksha vatam iti ashankayam bhavana bhedat atra tat phala bhedaha api asti. So this is a very subtle thing, but let's just pause and understand this. This is the whole purpose of going through this Shankarananda ji's commentary on this, because he points out the subtlety of how these things are strung together. So again, just to make sure that I'm clear about in explaining this to you. So the doubt here is, you are only telling me to continue with my fighting on this war, to resume what I was going to do, because this will give me happiness. This is what you're telling me. This is what appears to me. You are not telling me what is needed for my permanent peace, even beyond the pleasures of life. What is paramarthika satyam? One which is, because the pleasures of life are fleeting. Anything which requires karma has a phalam. So phalam means a fruit. A fruit, there is no such thing as a permanent fruit. It's very obvious. You look at your own fruits in your own home. Bananas, how quickly they go. That's the very reason for the phalam. That's the very nature of the fruits. So similarly, all you're telling me is that the fighting will enable me to become very happy for a while. I'm not interested in just being happy for a while. You're not telling me that this will give me permanent peace. This is my doubt. So he says, so he answers that. So look at the answer. So again, I'll repeat these sentences. Tataha indriya ramanam eva kartavyam yuddham. Means Indriya Ramana means the one that allows my senses to enjoy. Because Swargadi Sukha Hetutvam Yuddhasya Drishyate. Because you have shown me that this Swarga etc. is a cause for Indriya Ramana. You've already told me that. Because bandhakatvat na paramartha apeksha vatam. That because it is bandhakatvam means that it is temporary. It is fraught with dependency. Means it's a kshanikaha. It's just, it will come and go. Don't you agree? And therefore your advice to me is not for paramarthika satyam, it is just pleasures of life. So this is his doubt. So it starts with nanu and goes up to tataha bandhakatvat na paramartha pekshya vatam iti ashankayam. This being the doubt, now the answer is na. Na means no. This is not a correct way of looking at it. He says na. Bhavana bhedat atra tat phala bhedaha api asti. So this is the crux of the Karma Yoga. He starts that. This is the seed of the Karma Yoga. Right here. He says no. He says, may you not doubt it that way, that I am giving you, the reason for fighting, for it is only for pleasure. No. Why not? The reason is bhavana bhedat atra tat phala bhedaha api asti. He says the difference in how you look at it makes all the difference. Bhavana means how you think about it, your attitude. Attitude is a good word for bhavana. I'm saying that because I remember when we went over this, not this particular commentary, but in general with Swami Dayanandji, I remember his words. He says that Karma Yoga really means attitude. Attitude. If I can, if I'll give you a sort of like a sorry, I have to praise myself to give you this example, but it was really a very interesting example. So in the beginning, when we established the Sailorsburg Ashram, I was very involved with that. Pardon me. In the beginning of the Sailorsburg Ashram, I happened to be one of the 4 or 5 people that started looking for a place and this, that, or the other. Couldn't find it in the West Coast, so had to be in the East Coast. All of that was going on. And so for the first few years, we were really struggling. And, obviously you had to attract people to come. We didn't have the facilities. It was a big, big problem. Okay. 4 or 5 years later, the crowd started to come. Even earlier than that, I don't know the exact time. And then the people started to come. At one time, I was visiting, and you won't believe this, in a small one room place, there were 6 of us sleeping on the floor. We had our own beds and so on. And the 6 people sharing one bathroom. You can imagine. And it was really, a difficult time because we didn't have enough facilities. So in the evening, Swamiji made a statement, Swami Dayanandji made a statement. He says, he was talking about attitude. This is what really reminded me of it. He says that there were some people who were really complaining that we have no facilities and we have to share bathrooms, and it's just this is not a good setup and so on. And then actually this is a fact, because in one of our satsangs I told Swamiji, I said, Swamiji, I am so happy that finally people are starting to come. And I'm happy that I have to share this with 5 other people. And he says, I said, even though it is troublesome, but I'm happy that we are now doing very well. I told this to him in his satsang. So in the evening lecture, amongst hundreds of people, he made me an example of how the right attitude is. He says, Vijay was telling me that he was very happy that it's so overcrowded. So he says, same thing, a person can be unhappy. The overcrowding can be a source of unhappiness and a source of happiness. I remember this so well. I felt so good actually that he gave my example, but I didn't want to really get the spotlight on myself. So similarly here also he says, Bhavana bhedat atra tat phala bhedaha pi asti. This is the seed of Karma Yoga. He says, I will not accept that the yuddha will only give you temporary pleasure. If you have the right attitude, it will give you a different result. And you need to listen to that. So then he explains this further. Yatha Jyotishto maha swarga kamanaya kritaha swarga hetu akamanaya chitta shuddhihi hetu. He gives this example. He says there is a very important yaga which is called Jyotishtomaha. The Jyotishtomaha is not just the normals. You go to a local temple and say, this is what we do. In our family also we do that. Whenever we have a new person in the family or we have to do a griha pravesha or something, you go to the local temple and says, this is what I want to do. Please do some, and you give him some money and so on and so forth. It's done. Jyotishtoma means this is a huge yaga with thousands. You must have the ability. You have to feed a lot of people. You do a big thing. You have to do so much dhanam. So this is Jyotishtoma. He says Jyotishtoma can be done with Swarga Kama. So the bhavana is that I want to go to heaven. And if you do that kind of yajna and you want to definitely go to heaven, you will go there. It's done. This is exactly how our karma kanda is structured. If you do the following things, it will happen. Pakka. So he says, Yatha Jyotishtomaha Swarga Kamanaya Kritaha. By the kamana of Swarga Kritaha, if it is done, Kritaha Swarga Kamana, Swarga Hetuhu. It is the cause of Swarga. Akamanaya chitta shuddhi hetu. But if you were to do the same yaga without having the kamana for going for swarga, the same thing turns into purification of your own thinking. So he says, Tadvat yuddham prajapati, Tadvat yuddham prajaparipalanam danam cha kama akamabhyam swargadi phalaya chitta shuddhaye cha bhavati. So he says, just like in the case of Jyotishtoma, even the fighting with the right kind of attitude instead of kama and akama, instead of pleasure, becomes a hetu for permanent peace of mind in yourself. Same thing. And how that is done because of the bhavana is now described. Shreyas kamascha itvam yuddham akamanaya eva kurvita iti aha sukha dukkhe. So he says that if your attitude is towards Shreya, not Preya. So Preya means for pleasure. Shreya means what is permanently good for me. You know, this is exactly what happens in our economic attitudes. If you make some money, you can either spend it, which is called preyaha, and have fun. You can go to Hawaii and just 1 week you can spend thousands of dollars. Or you can save it for the future. Shreya. So similarly here he says, Shreya kamaschati itvam yuddham akamanaya eva kurvita. So he says, may you look upon this war as a way of chitta shuddhi, na kamana. And in order to show that, this topic is now begun. What topic? Labha alabhau jaya ajayau cha tat phalabhute sukha dukkhe cha samekritva samabuddhir bhutva labhadinam siddhi asiddhayoho harsha vishadavat akritva iti artha. So he says that the attitude you should do is not be involved with the immediate phalam, but to look back and think about the future, and just don't be bothered about it to that extent that it will be pushed out of shape. This is what he's saying. Labha labhau jaya jayau cha chat phalabhute sukha dukkhe cha samekritva samabuddhi bhutva. Having become your samabuddhi, having a certain control of your mind, labhadinam siddhi asiddhayoho harsha vishadau akritva. Siddhi asiddhayoho harsha vishadau akritva. That you don't get just completely enamored by your pleasure, or to be put down by dukkha, but just to stay, because the Atma is not involved with immediate pleasure. It gives substance to whatever you are doing, but eventually there is no effect on you. And that is what you have to really put your attitude to, that if you keep doing that, you will see that really you've had many lives before, many parents, many husbands, wives, and so on. You're still the same. These things really don't matter that much. You just have to understand that you are asangaha. And in order to understand that, you should at least have the ability to detach yourself from the daily problems that occur to you. This is the general advice. Then he explains this further. Mad bhaktya vidhi vidheyaha bhutva tataha vidyuktaya yuddhaya swadharma anushtanaya yujyasva yatasva. Evam, I'll explain this in a minute. Evam, let me go to the next sentence. Evam vidhi uktam tat tat ishvara arpana buddhya karishyami iti evam nischayena yuddham kurvan papam na vapsyasi. So he says what you need to do is to engage in the war, not for your own self, although that is what your eventual. We never do anything without really keeping in mind our own gains. But in this particular way of looking at things, you just let things happen for my sake. I am the one, Ishvara is the one who is arranging for all this war, who created this whole thing between dharma and adharma and appointed the people. So look at the larger picture. Don't look upon yourself as I did this and so on. Look at my it is kind of like a script in a play. So there is a script writer that created the very storyline for this play, and so follow it. Don't take your ideas in the middle of the play and say this. I don't think the scriptwriter did this right, so let me just do it on my own. You're going to spoil the whole play. So just say, okay, you may not like it in a particular scene, but you say this is what the script calls for. Just do it. This is exactly what he's saying. Mad bhaktya, by devotion to me, vidhi vidheyaha, what needs to be done. This is what you need to keep on doing. Vidhiyuktaya yuddhaya swadharma anushtaya yujyasva yatasva. Yuddhasva here, yuddhasva means may you be engaged in the war, meaning yatasva. Yatna kurvan. You try to do it. Yatna means your actions must be consistent. If you do this, na avapsyasi, papam na avapsyasi, you're not going to have any problems, and you will go through life in a way that enables you to turn the attention to your own Atma. Okay, that's what he's saying. And he gives certain quotations. Brahmane brahmana labham brahmanam brahmana labheta iti shruti ukte naramedhe brahmana malabh. I don't remember all the, and let's not worry about all of the quotations. He gives some quotations from it. So, but I think that is the sense of what I wanted to convey, that the sukha dukkhe samekritva starts the whole process of the right attitude. He says the same war that can give you simply Swargaloka or you conquering the whole earth, that can be done. But the same war with the right attitude can really lift you up into Paramarthika Satyam. That is the main message given in this whole section. And he moves on to to verse number 39. Esha te Bihita Sankhye Buddhir Yoge Tvaimam Shrunu Buddhya Yukto Yaya Partha Karma Bandham Prahasyasi. So he says, so far the buddhi, the way of thinking, is Sankhya Buddhi. So here Sankhya Buddhi is explained by Swami Paramartha. So this is exactly what the beauty of the commentary is, that it brings various words used in the Gita into something which is consistent. This is a very beautiful thing to see. So, for example, Sankhya. So there is a train of thought which is called the Sankhyas. So this is a completely different way of looking at the reality of the world. So the Sankhya people believe that Prakriti, the nature, is independent from the Purusha. So there are two things. There is a permanent Prakriti and a permanent Purusha. And the two of them, when they all get together and you can resolve them, then you have moksha. But the Prakriti keeps on staying separately. Some very funny things which are nothing to do with Advaita Vedanta. And so this is what it means. This is the nature of things. We don't agree with that at all, because we'll go into the details in some other places. But this is what is called the Sankhya. So the Shad Darshana. So there are 6 different ones of them. Sankhya is one of them. Yoga, Vaisheshika, Karmakanda, etc. So this is the Sankhya. Here, however, the word Sankhya is not that Sankhya. It means Paramarthika Vidya. Same thing as we are saying. So in fact, the people who follow the Sankhya, they actually say that it says right here in the Bhagavad Gita that he's praising Sankhya, so he's praising us. not praising you. He's simply saying this is the same. Sankhya means so it comes from the word Sankhya. Sankhya means enumerating and making sure that it is all very accurate. So Brahma Vidya is Parama Vidya Vishaya. So he says that here. If you look at this is a Hindi translation. Very nicely, he says, Sankhya Buddhi is Parama Brahma, Parabrahma Vishayaka Buddhi. So anyway, going back to the very sentence itself, he says, Esha te abhihita sankhye. He says, up to now, what I had been talking about is Sankhya Buddhi. Sankhya Buddhi means Parabrahma Buddhi. So all the verses from 1 to 37 or up to 31, 11 to 30 was talking about Jnana Yoga. That listen, Atma never gets avinashitu tad viddhi. It never changes anything, it remains the same. So this is what is called Sankhya Buddhi. Now I am going to focus in on Yoga Buddhi, Karma Yoga Buddhi. Karma Yoga Buddhi is not different from Sankhya Buddhi, but Sankhya Buddhi is what is to be achieved, and Karma Yoga Buddhi is how to achieve that. It's the sadhana versus sadhya. But the focus on the sadhana can be considered to be different from the focus on the sadhya. I grant that. So to clarify that, he's saying, now I'm going to start talking about Karma Vidya, not Atma Vidya, not Jnana Yoga, this is Karma Yoga. In the Karma Yoga, you should see what is it meant for, what is the relationship to the Jnana Yoga. It's not an alternative, it is a subset of it. Nevertheless, this is what I'm going to talk about, so you don't get confused. So this is what he's saying. Esha te abhihita sankhye means up to now I have been talking about Sankhya. Buddhir yoge tu imam shrunu. From now on, please listen to what is called Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga means Karma Yoga Buddhi Yoga. This is what is also explained by Swami Shankarananda, that now Buddhi Yoga means Karma Buddhi Yoga, please. And by knowing which, then the limitations of karma will become clear to you, and you will be qualified for Jnana Yoga. This is what he is saying. So in the next few words, let me just introduce it with the introductory paragraph. On page 87, Nanu Veda Vinashinam Nityam Ityadina Brahma Vidaha Na Kinchit Kartavyam Asti Iti Upapadya Idanim Swadharmam Apicha Ityadina Karma Kartavyamiti Tvaya Punah Karma Vidhiyate Dukkha Bhuishthasya Karmanah Karana Apekshaya Karta Karanam Karyam Cha Sarvam Mithya Eva Iti Karma Sarvam Sanyasya Tushnim avasthanam eva sukhamiti chet satyam. So he says, let me explain this. So he says basically that you are saying, so this is the doubt. I wouldn't say objection, as it's a doubt in the minds of Arjuna. That are you not saying that all of really this is not, this is all mithya, this is not real stuff, right? So therefore I should become independent of that and I will just quietly sit. Here, just me reiterate that in the words of Swami Dayananji. I remember this so well. So Swami Dayananji had said here that Arjuna can now ask, I'm just giving you the overall sense of it so that instead of going through word by word, Arjuna could have said to Krishna, wait a second. Because Arjuna had been a Vedika. He is familiar with Vedas and he was a friend of Krishna. They were buddies. And so he says, haven't you been telling me that really just meditation on the self is really the thing to do? You've been telling me all this, haven't you? He said, yes, I have. So therefore, I want to also go and meditate only. Just be myself and be very quiet. So he says, I'll just pick out some words. Karta karanam karyam cha sarvam mithya eva iti karma sarvam sanyasya tushnim avasthanam eva sukham iti chet. Tushnim avasthanam. Tushnim means quiet. Not talking to anybody, just being with myself. He says, isn't that what you had been asking me to do? And shouldn't I be doing this? So he says, Satyam. The answer to this doubt by Arjuna is, you are right. You are right. So, evam vidagyanam eva aham mama ityadi samsara brahma vidvamsakam bhavati. He says, you are right. I think meditation upon your myself is superior to engaging with all the problems in life. I agree with that. I've been saying that. But, now comes an important but. Tathapi tatha rudhan vishayam natu arurukshu vishayam iti mumukshu nam karma tat sannyasas marga parigyanaya karma sannyasa karma yoga yoho vishaya vibhagam suchayitum karma anusthana prakaram cha bodhayitum iti aha. So here there are two important words that you may want to be, if you're doing Sanskrit, you will see this. One is called Arudha and one is called Aruruksha. Anyway, we'll decide, forget about the big words or anything. He says, yes, I've been telling you to meditate on yourself. But that is meant for someone who has already understood the whole thing, Jnani. That the Atma is Avinashi, it is Swatasiddha, one who has completely understood. Then there is no need to fight. Now, this is the word Arudha. Arudha means here one who has already mounted. It's kind of like mounting a horse. So you're on the horse. You have successfully, mounting a horse is not an easy thing to do, because the horse is much higher than the human being. And mounting a horse is not an easy accomplishment. You have to figure out, so you have to have some contraptions and you have to put your foot on it. So one who is already mounted means one who has already reached the understanding of what the whole thing is all about. For them, there is one thing. But Aruruksha means Rodhum Ichha, one who is trying to mount but hasn't mounted yet, is a completely different thing. See, so he says, please do not confuse those two. One is an accomplished person. There the world is not to be worried about. You can sit wherever. On the other one who is trying to be that, you have to engage with the world. So that's exactly what he's talking about. He says, Evam vidha jnanam eva aham mama ityadi samsara brahma vidyamsakam bhavati tathapi tat arudha vishayam. This is a person of Vishaya, means a subject matter for one who is already accomplished. Natu aruruksha vishayam iti mumukshunam karma tat sannyasa marga parigyanaya karma sannyasa karma yoga yoho vishaya vibhagam suchayitum karma anusthana prakaram cha bodhayitum aha esha iti. He says, please, there are two different ways of handling your transactions in the world. Either you are done, you're okay. If you're still trying, I need to tell you how you should behave with the world so that you yourself will become capable of becoming independent. So in order to separate these two, one was Sankhya Vidya, one is Buddhi Yoga Vidya. And is to begin those topics, I am now starting this new Karma Yoga section. This is how the verse number 39 is talked about, which is a very long one. Let me see how much of that I might bring up, but at least I think from a conceptual standpoint, you've gotten a introduction to what this verse is, number 39 onwards. So we have at least gotten into it. We only have a few more classes left. So I think that we will probably be able to sketch this out a little better, and then probably finish the Bhagavad Gita and move on to some other text as we have talked about it. So with that, let me close the class. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Good. Nice to see you all in the class. Excuse me. Let's see. So we have just trying to see my own notes that I sent to you. So we have what, about three or more, pardon me, three or more classes on this topic. So next Saturday we will not have a class because of Swami Paramatmanandaji's talks in Milpitas, and then a couple of Saturdays will be missing because of the retreat at the ashram. And I think we will probably have one class after the retreat, which will be our final class. At least that's what I'm thinking of. And then in the first week of June, we will start a new text. We would have completed the Nididhyasanam section, and most probably I'm going to take the Mandukya with Karika. So that's the general plan. I got one or two input saying that 9 o'clock is better than 8 o'clock. So we'll continue with the timing of the 9 o'clock class when we begin the new text also, and make it into a slightly bigger class, maybe hour and a half, hour and a quarter, something like that. Still end up at 10:30. So that will be the plan. So, okay, I'm seeing if you have any questions. All right, very good. Good to see you, and hopefully we'll see you. I'll see you, some of you, at Swamiji's talks, and then whenever the classes begin, we will resume